This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English, episode number 222 and the first episode of the year 2024. It is getting a bit difficult. I'm almost having more difficulty remembering which year we're in than which episode it is. Both things cause me a lot of difficulty. Anyway, we have a fantastic episode today with someone who I admire a lot, okay? He is in this online teaching English game like me, and he has had a lot of success, much more than me, but 100% deserved. He, in my opinion, is one of, if not the best English teacher out there. So I highly recommend you follow him. His name is Keith from English Speaking Success. He has a YouTube channel with millions and millions of people that subscribe to it. And he has been on the podcast before when he wasn't so famous many years ago. But I was very happy to find out that Keith has not forgotten about me. Now he is famous. So in today's episode, we talk about vocabulary because Keith's main strength is IELTS. So I thought, right, let's do some vocabulary. That's important for IELTS, which is an English speaking exam. But it's not in a boring way. We don't talk about vocabulary like how to learn it and stuff. We talk about items of vocabulary and share stories about them. And believe me, there are some really good stories. So I will see you all again at the end. But in the meantime, happy listening. So hello Keith and welcome back to Rock and Roll English.
Hi Martin, it's great to be back here, rocking and rolling with you again.
Great to have you. And you have turned into a YouTube sensation since the last time we spoke. I think the last time we spoke, you had about 10 subscribers, maybe 12. And I think it's in the millions now.
It's increased. It's madness. It's increased, I think, 3 million plus now. It's just grown and grown and grown. Obviously, a big demand for IELTS and IELTS speaking. I don't know why people follow me, but there you go. They do.
As I mentioned briefly in our pre-podcast chat, I think you are being very modest there, Keith, because I personally think I've seen a couple of your lives that they are absolutely fantastic from a teaching perspective. So I think you absolutely deserve all of this success. Wow. So I'll tell people constantly to go and follow you because I think you are absolutely brilliant. But
I'm going red.
But you mentioned there also, obviously, the main thing you teach is IELTS speaking.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is vocabulary, because I'm sure you'll know this better than me, Keith. If you want to get one of the high marks, it says something, I can't actually remember now, about using
idiomatic language, using less common vocabulary, less common idiomatic expressions. Yeah, to get that kind of band 7 in IELTS speaking. Yeah.
Yes, I used to know all of these bands much better and what was written in them, but I haven't taught an IELTS class for a couple of years now.
Yeah, we forget.
Yeah, exactly. So I have lots of idiomatic language here.
Great.
And so here is how it's going to work. I'm going to say the expression and I will ask you for a definition. And as we did speak about in our pre-podcast chat, it's not always easy to give a definition. So then I have, let's say, I wasn't not correct, but I have a definition from ChatGPT. Okay.
Right. The most reliable source. Yes, it's a good source.
Yeah. Yes. And then we will both share a kind of anecdote or story using this idiomatic term. Okay. So
sounds good.
Okay, so the first one I have on my list is to be strapped for cash. So let's have a definition, Keith.
To be strapped for cash means you don't have a lot of money, cash being money. So I think typically at the end of the month, people are strapped for cash because they've spent all their salary.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Yeah. So Mr. Chat GPT said to have very little money, to be financially tight or in a difficult financial situation. So exactly that. So when was a time that you have been strapped for cash, Keith?
It's a good question. I'll tell you when I first moved to Spain about 5 years ago. We just arrived here, and after a few months, we spent quite a bit of our savings getting established in Spain. And I remember the first summer we were here, my daughter wanted to do like a summer camp where they go surfing, because we're by the beach and they do surfing activities. And she did a week, but then after that she came and said, "I want to do a second week. Is that okay?" And I was looking at the bank balance, and I was really strapped for cash. And it was a real shame, but in the end we had to say no, because it wasn't cheap. And, we were just still settling down in the country. That was what happened to me.
Wow, that actually sounds quite similar to me at the moment, but I moved back to my home country, the UK, and it's so expensive that I'm always strapped for cash.
Right.
But yeah, so what lessons were they again?
So they were during the summer holidays. They have surfing lessons, and
beautiful.
She was new to surfing, and she got really excited about it and enjoyed it. But yeah, they do it week by week. They kind of drip feed it, and after a week, we were all great, lovely, and didn't expect her to come back saying, "Week number 2."
Yeah, well, maybe it was a good job you did stop at week number 2. Otherwise, it may have gone for like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Indeed. And interesting, you said that you'd moved from Italy back to the UK.
Yeah.
When you've moved back to the UK, what kind of things have you noticed are more expensive?
Literally everything, even breathing air. But obviously the main one is like houses, so paying rent. And the other big one, so transport as well, is really expensive. So just paying for those things leaves me very strapped for cash at the end of the month. But the story I had about this was when I was at university. I think, like most students, I was very strapped for cash. And I specifically remember once I had about £12 in my bank account.
Right.
But some more money was coming in soon. I can't remember. I must have been getting paid or something like that. And so I only had £12. And I remember there was a big football match on, Arsenal against Real Madrid. And I went to the pub with my friends. So it was a weekday. It was a Wednesday, Champions League. And they were doing a pint for £1. And I took £10 out of the cash machine. And it's one of the only times in my life that I have drunk 10 pints of beer. But it was a fantastic night. So despite being strapped for cash, I certainly enjoyed myself.
I'm sure whatever the result, you would have enjoyed yourself.
Yeah.
£1 a pint.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think they do that anymore. It was obviously, I think, showing my age quite a long time ago.
And who won the game?
Oh, so that was Arsenal. And the game actually, still to this day, was one of the greatest games I've ever seen, because it was the first time an English team beat Real Madrid in Madrid. And I still remember when Arsenal scored that goal. It was absolute chaos in that pub, especially because it was towards the end of the match. So we were probably about 7 pints in at this point. So yeah, it was absolute carnage.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. So another one I have here is hit and miss. What does that mean, Keith?
Hit and miss. If something is hit and miss, I think it's not very reliable. Kind of, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Exactly. Something like that.
I think that's a very good definition. Mr. Chat said inconsistent or unpredictable, involving a mixture of successes and failures without a clear pattern, which I think is interesting. The without a clear pattern. So you never really know if it's going to be a success or a failure.
Right.
So
right.
What is an example you have of this, Keith?
Hit and miss. Yes. I mean, the original example I was, well, let me think. I'm thinking about films. So I'm a bit of a Netflix fan. I love Netflix, and I used to love Netflix. I think it's got worse and worse. But so I pop in sometimes, and I pick a film and I watch a film. And to be honest, I think that the films on Netflix are hit and miss. So,
definitely.
I thought as a film I watched was called Extraction. Do you remember that? There's a kind of an action film, drama, one of the Chris Helmsworth films. And I thought, this will be great. And I watched it, and it was a load of rubbish. It was absolutely terrible. And then another day, I was watching a film, which I actually recommended to my students, called The Swimmers.
Okay.
About a couple of, I think there were Syrian girls who were competing internationally or nationally for swimming competitions. And then they, in the Syrian exodus, if you like, they became refugees, and they went on a boat, and there's trouble on the boat. I won't give anything away, but it was a great film. But yeah, I think things like that, films on Netflix, are hit and miss.
Absolutely. In fact, before I had children, and when I had a kind of life with my wife,
we have no life now.
No, exactly.
Children, that's it.
Certainly no time together. So often on a Saturday night, we would sit down and choose a film on Netflix. But I actually don't watch many films because I'm worried about watching a rubbish film, because I don't like to waste, obviously, 2 hours of my life watching a rubbish film. So very often what would end up happening on a Saturday night is we would spend sort of 40 minutes trying to choose a film.
Right.
Saying, what about this? I don't know. What about this? Does this sound good? Reading the sort of description,
the research, and then look at the review.
And then realizing, oh, it's actually quite late now. Should we just go to bed and not watch a film?
That's one way around it. Yes.
Yeah. Because as you said, the films are very hit and miss. So you don't want to be watching some rubbish film. For me, I was thinking about videos on Instagram. Okay, sometimes I think, okay, I've made this video, this is going to be a huge success, and like my mum will like it, and maybe my wife, and it does absolutely rubbish. But at the same time, I've uploaded other videos where I kind of think, well, it's a bit rubbish, but I should really post something today, and it explodes.
Right.
And so, yeah, for me, videos on Instagram are very hit and miss.
That's interesting. I agree. And you're talking there as a creator of videos. I agree. They're hit and miss as a viewer of videos, that some are good and some are bad. In your experience, which kind of, I mean, you're on Instagram, what kind of videos do you generally find people like?
I have a new one where I kind of give them a kind of quiz that generally works, where I say a phrase like the price of peas, and it's like, did I say the price or the prize of peas or peace?
Oh, like pronunciation.
Yep. And then people comment. That generally does well. But yeah, I've had other ones where I was sure, I remember thinking this is going to be huge, and then just literally nothing. I went to the aquarium quite recently with my children, and I thought, right, I'm going to make a video. So I was there with my phone filming all of these fish, and I thought, oh, people are going to love this. Absolutely not.
Because your kids are young, right? How old are the kids?
Yes. So 9 months, and the other one must be 2 and 9 months, because there's exactly 2 years between them. So yeah.
That's lovely. It's the old strategy of either use a cat or young kids normally works, but not always. It's hit and miss.
Absolutely. So the next one is to do something up, which generally, in fact, you tell us, Keith, the definition man.
So, well, the one that pops to my mind is to do something up, is to do a house up, is to renovate a house.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's the first one. I can't really think of any other times where that would be used. The only version I can think of is I remember a friend would always talk about girls and say, when she's done up, she looks great. To say like when she's going out with like makeup and stuff.
She's made up.
But I mean, this is when we were teenagers. I just remember him using that phrase quite a lot, and it wasn't a term that I was particularly familiar with.
When
but otherwise,
she's done up. Yeah. You can do up, I guess you can do up your buttons, right? Do up your shirt.
Yeah.
Or if you're flying low, do up your flies, maybe.
Of course. That I think is a slightly different meaning though but in this sense of like to make something better, like you said, to like renovate the house. So in fact, Mr. Chat says to renovate or refurbish a house, to make improvements or repairs to a building. So have you done up a house, Keith?
I have done up a house. I like that word, refurbish. That's a great word. Refurbish, renovate. I have done up a house. I mean, going back to not when we moved to Spain, but I think it's 2 years ago, we decided, we're going to settle in Spain. So we bought a house in Spain, and it was a place that needed doing up. Mm-hmm. So basically it was quite fairly old. I mean, some of the stuff was good, but there were certain areas, certain floors we had to change. We knocked down a wall or two and put up some new walls. So we did up the house, and it took bloody ages. I mean, they said, yeah, we'll take about a couple of months. Builders took about 6 months or more to do everything up. I think it was more than that in the end, because certain things just went on and on and on. They just didn't get finished. So we have done up a house here, in Spain.
Okay, so my big question here, I think I understood something from your answer, is we often talk on Rock and Roll English about how I am not a real man because I don't know how to use a hammer or a screwdriver or things like this. What about you, Keith? So if you have to do up a house, are you capable of this?
Oh dear, you've hit my Achilles heel. I'm a bit like you. I'm rubbish at DIY.
Right. Okay.
So everything we look at, I say, oh, we'll get the painter in. Oh, we'll get somebody in to do that. My wife's the opposite. She's like, no, we'll have a go. We'll do that. So I can just about change plugs.
Okay, that's more than me. So
and I've learned, actually. It was interesting over the 2 years when things have not quite worked out, or we've had to help out, whatever. So I've learned I can do a bit of painting now. I can change plugs. I can I've put a shelf up. I mean, how good is that? I actually have put up a shelf.
If we were having a real man competition, you would be destroying me at the moment. I have never put a shelf up.
It's not as hard as you think, and all you need is the motivation. Like, really, you're desperate for somewhere to put books, and you know where you learn, right? On YouTube.
I was about to say that, yeah.
And that's it.
I did once put a picture up, and that was a great day until my wife said it's not straight, and that just kind of destroyed my confidence.
And since then, you've never lifted a hammer.
No. And in fact, so my example of this is actually my father-in-law, who I feel quite sorry for, because we bought a house in Sicily, and basically he spent 3 to 4 years doing that place up.
Wow.
And then we sold it and moved to England.
Was he annoyed?
He wasn't, because he's a great guy. Well, he didn't express it to me if he was. I certainly would have been in his shoes, but he's a nice person. So in fact, he would come to our house, which was a 3-hour drive away, to our house. So we would work, obviously, during the week, come to our house at the weekend, spend all day doing some kind of DIY stuff. I was the person like holding his tools. Do you know, like when you have like a 6-year-old doing that? But it's just, I was like 36 at the time, and he was like, "Can you pass me the hammer?" But it was great to learn Italian vocabulary for these things. So
that is very interesting you say that. I learned a whole bunch of Spanish vocabulary for things like skirting boards, hammer, nail, that I didn't know before. It is interesting. Yeah, it boosts your vocabulary.
Absolutely. So, okay, on to the next one. To run out of steam. What does that mean, Keith?
To run out of steam? I think it means, it kind of means that you're tired, that you've been doing something difficult and you run out of steam because you're tired.
Yes, absolutely. The chat, Mr. Chat's definition is to lose energy or enthusiasm, which I think that's quite interesting, to lose enthusiasm, to become tired or exhausted, especially in the context of physical or mental effort. So,
right. Yes. Makes sense.
What about you, Keith? When is a time that you have run out of steam?
I ran out of steam. I'll tell you a time that is very clear for me, or very vivid, is when I was doing a master's degree. I did it quite late in life. In 2013, I think I began. And it was part-time. So I was working at the time. I was working actually out in China. and full-time job, and then part-time doing my master's degree. And I do remember after, I think, the second year, I ran out of steam. I had no energy, because you're there in the evenings when you get home from work, you're kind of sitting down trying to study every evening a couple of hours. It's interesting you said motivation or energy or enthusiasm. I ran out of physical energy and psychological energy. I was just like, I wanted to give up and just, I can't carry on.
Absolutely, I can imagine. But
Yeah.
did you manage to get it done?
I did. The way round it was I deferred for a term. So basically, I said to the university, can I take 6 weeks off? Not 6 weeks, 6 months.
Okay.
Can I miss this term and carry on the term after? Because it just, work was so busy. I was just demotivated. So I thought I just need to take a break. So I took 6 months off. And actually it worked. There's always a fear you're going to lose contact with it, but it worked. I came back full of energy and enthusiasm. And I think I was excited about it, which helped me finish it. Yeah. And I did. Yeah, I finished it.
Okay, excellent. Well done. Yeah, I actually...
What about you? Have you ever run out of steam?
Very often. And especially in this kind of online game that we're in. Right. So teaching, obviously. So you do lots of YouTube. And so sometimes I've got lots of energy and enthusiasm. Like I'm contacting people to collaborate. I'm making videos, making podcasts. But then sometimes I just completely run out of steam, and then I just think I can't be bothered to do anything, because I think this happens more now I've got children, and I work for myself, because when you've got a normal job, you just go there and you're basically told what to do. You know what you should do. When I wake up and I decide what to do, sometimes it's really difficult, especially maybe to make a video for Instagram or YouTube, to not only motivate yourself, but to put yourself on camera and pretend that you're enjoying life.
Hello.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have to be enthusiastic, obviously, when you do these kind of things.
You don't always feel like it.
Absolutely not. So I often find myself running out of steam.
Well, what do you do then when you run out of steam? I mean, you could either go back to bed, but what do you normally do?
No, I kind of plow through, I suppose, which is a nice term. Like I do something, because I've always got things to do. So I will always find something I can do, but I would obviously choose the not being on camera version, or having to record a podcast, just maybe edit a podcast, for example, which is quite a boring job to do.
Less energy.
Yeah, exactly. But so that I would normally go for those, or like some admin, like respond to emails kind of thing. Just avoid anyone having to look at my face, which actually brings me to the next one quite nicely, which is to have a face like thunder.
Thunder as in like in the storm, right?
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to stop the episode there and continue it tomorrow in the members area, the RnR English family. And remember, if you would like to become a member of the RnR English family, where you get more than 1,000 extra podcasts, weekly online lessons, the chance to build a personal relationship with me, and most importantly, wonderful people from around the world. If this sounds good, then click on the link in the description to the podcast you are listening to right now. So just a quick look at some of the main vocabulary, the ones that we shared stories about. So strapped for cash when you don't have any money. Hit and miss to describe something with inconsistent results, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And to do something up, generally a house, sometimes a car. Then to run out of steam, so when you lose enthusiasm for something after usually starting strong. Then we move to a face like thunder, which we will discuss in the members area tomorrow. So thanks everyone for listening. Remember to go and check out Keith. All of the links to his stuff will be in the show notes, so you can go to rockandrollenglish.com, find the latest episode, and then you will find all of Keith's links. So thanks again everyone for listening. I will talk to you all very soon, but in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks Thanks so much for listening to RnR English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.